US-Russia bonhomie under Trump shattered. Moscow breathes fire. US seizes Russian-flagged oil ship. Russia-Ukraine peace talks under threat. Euro-Atlantic region to pay the price for Trump's dare. Harsh words from Russia after the US seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic on Wednesday. The Russian Foreign Ministry, in a statement, said that the seizure of tanker Marinera, formerly known as Bella 1, can lead to a further escalation of military and political tensions in the Euro-Atlantic region, as well as a visible lowering of the threshold for the use of force against peaceful shipping. The Russian Foreign Ministry termed US actions as utterly cynical reflection of neo-colonial ambitions. The ministry also described it as a gross violation of international maritime law and insisted the ship had a permit to sail under the Russian flag issued in December. It categorically rejected US threats to prosecute the crew of the ship. Moscow added that sanctions could not serve as justification to seize vessels on the high seas, and Washington's willingness to generate acute international crises is a cause for regret and concern. In Moscow, hawkish voices are demanding action. Calls are growing for Russia to deploy naval assets to protect ships of its shadow fleet. The demand grows as Russia had reportedly sent a submarine and other naval assets to escort the tanker. But the Kremlin remains silent. President Vladimir Putin has yet to comment. The White House, too, has offered no response to the Russian Foreign Ministry's criticism. But can Russia turn the rhetoric into reality? Can it punish the US? Well, Russia has few options when considering how to respond to the seizure. According to Daniel Fried, a former Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, the Russians could not have done anything about this ship. Fried said Russia has little credibility when it comes to complaints about international law, given its invasion of Ukraine. The ship was given a temporary permit to fly the Russian flag late last month, so the Russian claim of the ship is also tenuous. Fried added that Putin may not want to risk antagonizing Trump over plotting an attack on US interests. Meanwhile, a stunning video released by the US Department of Defense shows the Coast Guard cutter Monroe shadowing the tanker during the seizure. Officials say the Bella 1 was part of a sanctions-busting network moving Venezuelan oil, blacklisted by Washington in 2024. The tanker had suddenly reversed course in December, just days after another US seizure of a Venezuela-linked oil ship. When the Coast Guard attempted to board, the vessel fled. Now, the seizure has ignited a new flashpoint between Washington and Moscow.
Tensions between Russia and the United States have already erupted, and now the warnings are thunderous. Another line has been crossed, and it's raising fears of a far more dangerous escalation. Moscow now confronts Washington head-on, accusing the United States of illegal actions on the high seas. At the center of this confrontation, the oil tanker Marinera. Russia's foreign ministry issues a blunt demand: stop, immediately. Washington is urged to abandon what Moscow calls unlawful interference and return to the basic rules of international maritime navigation. In a strongly worded statement, the ministry said, "We call on Washington to resume compliance with the fundamental norms and principles of international maritime navigation and immediately cease its illegal actions against the Marinera and other vessels engaged in law-abiding activities on the high seas." The Foreign Ministry added, We reiterate our demand that the U.S. ensure humane and dignified treatment of the Russian citizens comprising the tanker's crew, strictly observe their rights and interests, and create no obstacles to their prompt return to their homeland. The language is unmistakable, the patience thin. Moscow demands adherence to the rule of law and an end to what it labels illegal pressure.
This comes after another sharp warning issued on January 7th, a sign that Russia's message is hardening, not softening.
The confrontation is no longer theoretical, the lines are drawn, and the stakes are climbing fast. In a missive issued on January 7th, Russia broke its silence and formally condemned the U.S. seizure of the Russian-flagged oil tanker Marinera, calling it a blatant violation of international law and a direct challenge to its sovereignty.
The Russian Transport Ministry confirmed the vessel was captured, while the Foreign Ministry warned Washington that the operation flagrantly disregards the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the international treaty guaranteeing freedom of navigation in global waters. Considering the incoming information regarding the presence of Russian citizens among the crew, we demand that the American side ensure their humane and dignified treatment, strictly respect their rights and interests, and not impede their speedy return to their homeland. Russian nationals are among the crew, the ministry stressed, and Moscow is watching every move closely. The message is unmistakable. Interference will not be tolerated. As global eyes turn to the North Atlantic, tensions are escalating, and the standoff between Washington and Moscow has entered a dangerously volatile chapter.